The airport terminal buzzed with impatient travelers, but for one exhausted single father, time had stopped. His mother's funeral would begin in just a few hours, and the final flight that could get him there had suddenly been cancelled. The airline staff dismissed his desperate pleas, security escorted him away from the counter, and strangers quietly watched as a grieving father stood frozen, holding a small backpack in one hand and his young daughter's hand in the other. No one knew that beneath his worn jacket and tired appearance was the silent owner of one of the world's largest private aviation empires. What happened next would forever change the lives of everyone who judged him that day. If you believe kindness should never depend on someone's appearance, please like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to Humanity Tales for more emotional stories that restore faith in humanity. Ethan Carter had learned long ago that wealth could become a prison if people only respected the money instead of the person. Years earlier, after building an aviation company that connected remote communities with emergency air services and private charter operations across several countries, he quietly stepped away from the public eye following the death of his wife. Raising his 7-year-old daughter Lily became his only priority. He handed daily operations to trusted executives while remaining the company's majority owner, choosing to live simply rather than surrounded by luxury. Most people who met him assumed he struggled financially because he wore ordinary clothes, drove an aging family car, and never spoke about business. The phone call arrived before sunrise. His elderly mother had suffered a sudden heart attack during the night and passed away before doctors could save her. Ethan stared silently at the wall as memories flooded his mind. She had been the woman who believed in him when investors laughed at his impossible dreams. She worked extra jobs so he could finish engineering school. She was the reason every aircraft in his company carried a small engraved plaque that read, "Fly with compassion." Missing her funeral was something he simply could not imagine. He packed quickly, grabbed Lily's favorite stuffed rabbit, and drove to the airport. Traffic delays, road construction, and heavy rain stole precious minutes. By the time they reached the terminal, the flight was still boarding, but check-in had officially closed. Ethan calmly explained the emergency, showing the funeral documents and death certificate sent by relatives. He hoped someone would make an exception. Instead, policy became more important than compassion. The supervisor barely looked at the documents before shaking her head. Rules were rules. The aircraft door had already been prepared for departure. Several employees exchanged impatient looks as the growing line behind Ethan became frustrated. One whispered that people invented family emergencies every day. Another suggested he should have arrived earlier. Ethan remained respectful, asking only for understanding. He offered to pay any fee necessary. He even requested standing room if possible. Every request was rejected. Lily squeezed her father's hand while tears quietly filled her eyes. She had loved her grandmother deeply and wanted nothing more than to say goodbye. Watching her father struggle without anyone showing the smallest amount of kindness hurt even more than the cancellation itself. The final decision came quickly. The reservation was cancelled, their luggage removed, and security politely escorted them away from the counter after another passenger complained that they were delaying everyone else. Ethan stood silently near a large terminal window, watching the aircraft push back from the gate. As its engines roared to life, he realized he would never arrive in time to carry his mother's casket. For the first time in years, the man who had solved impossible aviation problems around the world felt completely powerless. Around him, travelers continued their journeys without noticing the broken-hearted father standing only a few feet away. Lily gently reached into her backpack and handed her father a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing she had made months earlier. It showed 3 people holding hands beneath a bright blue airplane. At the bottom she had written in childish handwriting that families always find their way home. Ethan smiled through tears. That simple drawing reminded him of something his mother often said. Compassion was never weakness. Real strength appeared when people chose kindness even after being treated unfairly. He opened his phone and called someone he had not personally contacted in nearly 2 years. Within minutes, activity quietly began thousands of miles away. Executives received unexpected instructions. Operations managers verified schedules. Pilots were contacted. Maintenance crews prepared aircraft that had been reserved for business clients. No announcements were made. No threats were issued. No employee at the airport had any idea what was happening. 25 minutes later, several airport managers suddenly received urgent calls from corporate headquarters. Their expressions immediately changed. The airline they worked for had recently signed an enormous partnership agreement with Carter Aviation Holdings, the global aviation company responsible for aircraft leasing, maintenance contracts, emergency logistics, and airport infrastructure investments worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The owner himself had just experienced an incident involving a grieving family. Executives demanded a complete explanation. Confusion spread through the terminal. Staff searched security cameras. Supervisors replayed recordings. The same tired father they had dismissed was now being identified as Ethan Carter, founder and owner of the Aviation Empire supporting thousands of aviation jobs around the world. No one knew what to say. Airport leadership rushed through the terminal looking for him. They eventually found Ethan sitting quietly beside Lily, sharing a small sandwich while waiting to decide how to drive several hundred miles overnight. Instead of anger, they found remarkable calm. Instead of demanding punishment, Ethan simply asked one question that echoed through the room. He wondered how many ordinary families had experienced exactly the same treatment without having any influence to expose it. Silence answered him. Within the next hour, Carter Aviation arranged one of its humanitarian response aircraft to transport Ethan and Lily to his hometown. The aircraft was already positioned nearby after completing a medical supply mission. The crew volunteered their time after learning why the flight was needed. When the small jet landed, no luxury waited inside. The cabin had been prepared with blankets, simple meals, and a small bouquet of white flowers placed on a seat with a handwritten note honoring Ethan's mother. Even the pilot stood quietly as father and daughter boarded. The funeral had been delayed only slightly after relatives learned Ethan was still traveling. As he helped carry his mother's casket, Ethan felt the heavy weight of grief mixed with gratitude. He had made it home. He whispered a silent promise that her kindness would continue living through every decision he made. Days later, he returned to work, not to seek revenge, but to create change. Rather than cancel contracts or fire employees, Carter Aviation launched a nationwide Compassion First initiative. Every airline partner receiving company support would introduce emergency bereavement policies, compassion training, and special authority allowing supervisors to assist grieving passengers without unnecessary bureaucracy. Employees would be rewarded not only for following rules but also for showing humanity. The airport where Ethan had been turned away became the first to adopt the new program. The supervisor who denied his request expected to lose her career. Instead, Ethan invited her to attend the first compassion training session. She admitted she had become so focused on procedures that she stopped seeing people behind the paperwork. The experience changed how she treated passengers forever. Months later, countless families received unexpected help during life's darkest moments because one grieving father chose forgiveness instead of revenge. Lily eventually visited the airport again. This time she noticed something different. Above every customer service desk hung a simple plaque inspired by Ethan's mother. It read, "Every traveler carries a story you cannot see." Thousands of passengers paused to read those words each day. Some smiled. Some cried. Many employees quietly remembered them before helping the next person in line. Before this story ends, tell us in the comments, if you had been standing in that airport, would you have spoken up to help this father? Ethan never wanted the world to remember him as a billionaire or the owner of an aviation empire. He hoped people would remember something far more valuable, that kindness costs nothing, compassion can change someone's worst day, and true greatness is measured not by the size of an empire but by the size of a heart. His mother's greatest legacy was never the company she inspired. It was the humanity she planted in her son's soul, a gift that eventually reached countless strangers she would never meet. If this story touched your heart, please leave a like, share it with your family and friends, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Humanity Tales. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful stories that remind the world that compassion still exists.